Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an Airbus A330 pilot and welcome to our first flight in the Flight Simulator 2024 Sim Update 2 beta. We've just about done a single A330 flight in Sim Update 1 where the A330 saw a lot of changes and where we did encounter some issues, so let's go ahead and take this one as number 2, both for reviewing the changes of beta number 1 and also for having a look at some of the things that are new with beta number 2. Alright then, so on the last flight we did encounter a couple of issues because of our toga activation after we got airborne, and well, that should not have brought the aircraft into go-around phase. I did just recheck that in the manuals. But nonetheless, today we are not gonna move our thrust levers into toga at all, so we are going to avoid that issue in first hand. Now, we are going to do this as a Discover Airlines Real Ops, flying the A330-300 from Mombasa over to Kilimanjaro, which is a 30-minute flight on the A330, and regularly operated by the A330 in real life as well. This is part of a triangle flight, so you do first go from Frankfurt to Mombasa, then there's a crew change over there, and then the new crew flies Mombasa to Kilimanjaro and back to Mombasa, and thereafter a new crew takes over and flies back to Frankfurt. So let's go right into it and get on board. Now, the first thing you can see over here is that the Sim Update 2 beta has actually introduced a funny little bug down here with those parts of the seat belts actually floating around in the business class cabin. But well, that seems to be a bug only in the business class, so overall not too bad. I'm not going to complain too much about this, and we'll just walk right up to the front and get our aircraft going. I will skip over all the fuel planning and stuff because, well, this is a 30-minute flight and I do want to focus on operating the aircraft today rather than focusing just on the, well, let's say too technical stuff. So this is very much going to be a look at our aircraft today. So then let's take a seat and let's go ahead and start setting up. So we can download our flight plan down here, also open those cargo doors, and then download the SimBrief plan Ocean 136 from Mombasa to Kilimanjaro. And we can see the weather seems a little bit out of date over here. But anyway, that shall be fine for today's flight. We do have the flight plan in here, that's most important. So from here let's move on to the payload section, and we're going to take 15 tons of fuel on today's flight. So 15,000, apply load and instant. And then we can go into the takeoff calculator and synchronize Mombasa runway 21. The weather is good. Takeoff weight, let's see what exactly that's going to be. Yeah, 150 tons. Pretty much nothing for an A330. But nonetheless. Alright, so config 2, air conditioning will be off, and then we hit calculate. And surprise, surprise, we can take off. Who would have thought that's possible? Alright then, onto the safety checks. Engine master levers off, start selector norm, thrust levers idle, landing gear lever down, wipers off, and we don't need to check the battery voltage since the electrical power is already applied. Nonetheless, we will realign the IRS, so let's turn them off, wait for 5 seconds, and then we can turn them back on again, 1, 2, and 3, do the APU fire test, which is looking good, and as a little fun matter of fact, you can see that we get the IR in a line in only 5 minutes. And the reason for that is that the closer to the equator you are, the shorter your IRS alignment time is, and it's nice to see that Builds have actually simulated this in, well, a default aircraft. Always got to keep that in mind when talking about this plane. Alright then, so oxygen quantity is okay, hydraulic quantities are okay, then let's turn on the FADEX. 1, 2, and the oil quantity is, wow, pretty full actually. I like that. I like that a lot. Alright, so that's all of these. The flaps are retracted, agree with the lever, spoiler is retracted. Let's release the parking brake here and test our brakes. That's looking good. And the brakes are set again. Alright, so then we've got the preliminary cockpit preparation done. Let's go right into the cockpit preparation. So voice recorder on, the crew supply is on already, evacuation switch on captain, then strobe lights auto, nav lights auto, seatbelts on, and up here everything is set. Fire test, it's looking good, and over here we are going to turn on the PA system on COM3 so that it gets recorded on the voice recorder. Right, QNH 1011. And over here we still have a funny little bug in that you can see that the QNH in hectopascals changes, but the inches stay unchanged. They seem to be coupled to the EFIS CP up here, which of course is incorrect behavior. Alright, nonetheless a positive fix that we've seen is that the GPS switch now defaults to the GPS position and no longer to the ET position. Now you may sometimes find it in the internal position as well, but that's mostly when the aircraft has flown through GPS jamming areas in earlier phases of the operation, because then the procedure would call for you to set it to the internal switch so that the jamming cannot influence the aircraft's system time. Alright, let's last but not least turn up the comms down here and the speaker up here, and well, then we can set a weather radar to weather, tilt +5, ground control sensor on, PWS is off, system is off and calibrated, and over here the TCAS is set as well. Well, and that's basically all we had to do down here. So with that, let's get right into our FMS. So we cross-check all those messages down here, A330-300, Trent 700 engines, and we have a current nav database. Let's do the flight plan request. And we go from Mombasa to Kilimanjaro, alternate is back to Mombasa, Ocean 136, cost index 10, and flight level 240. Now, for our departure of runway 21, we've got the NERAC 2 Alpha departure, sorry, NERAC 1 Alpha, with a Gatla transition, and then for the arrival into our destination, ILS Zulu approach, and we'll take the Ognes 2 Alpha arrival with the Xeba transition. Insert that, then let's find our charts and pin those. So we are leaving HKMO. Charts, departure, 2-1, out of SIDs, we can pin our ground chart, and we can pin the SID PT charts, which have been added recently as well. And those are really useful ones. You'll see why in a few moments. But let's start by reviewing our SID to ensure that that's correct. So we're going straight ahead to 1200 feet, and then it's a right-hand turn towards Nerak above 3000 feet. And we have those two in our FMS, and then we proceed on towards Gatla. Now, if we have a look into the SID PT chart, over here it is, NERAC 1 Alpha, then we can see that that's exactly the same that our textual description says as well. And most importantly, we've got our initial climb at 3000 feet in here as well. So let's already go ahead and pre-select that. Oh, 3000. So, for the engine out, let's go in here, we proceed to MBA X2. Like this, pick up a holding over there, 1 minute lag time, and then from here we can make an immediate return to HKMO, new destination, insert, and ILS approach runway 21, also insert. That's that down here. Then let's enter the same thing on the fixed page. HKMO 21, then radial 210, and MBA X2 as our fix info. Alright, so with that good stuff entered, let's move on to the init page, and then also back to our flight plan. So we're planned at a zero fuel weight of 134.6, and since we don't have a load sheet yet, we'll take a CG at 25, block fuel 15, taxi fuel 0.5, then let's scroll down and enter the other values as well, alternate 3.2, and final reserve is 2.1. We have 600 kilos contingency, And last but not least, we need the wind, which is at an average of 14 knots tailwind. Like this. Alright, then on to the winds, uplink request, and last but not least to the performance page. Now, I'm lazy, and my sim is lagging. I'll just use send to FMS. In the real world you couldn't do that, but hey, easy going, huh? Alright, so the last thing is the engine out acceleration, which will be 1700 and a D-rate climb 2. And that's all inserted, and with that we are basically done setting our FMS up for today's flight. Then let's move up to our EFSCP. QNH is already set. Then we do want the VORs. 3000 feet is good, and down here everything's set as well. Now though, let's just reset the flight directors so that we get the correct FMA up here, and then our last thing is going to be the oxygen check. And while the sound is bugging around, we can see that the cross is still showing. I'll take that as test passed. Alright, cool. So that's our pre-flight preparation completed. Now, a few small changes we saw compared to the earlier versions, but hey, I'm pretty happy with this. Now, let's go ahead and do our departure briefing, and then we can prepare ourselves for our pushback and departure. So departing Mombasa, runway 21 via the Nerak 1 Alpha departure and the Gatla transition. MSA 2,600 feet, climbing at 3,000 feet initially, and extra fuel is 5,000 kilos. So basically an hour flight time, since we do have the tankering on board. Alright, thank you very much for that. So we have no hotspots for our taxi routing. However, animals are a bit of a thing here in Africa, so good look outside, and if we see any, then we'll have to call ATC to send us a marshal to get rid of those animals. Now, stop margin is about 500 meters, and in case we continue, we go straight ahead to the Mombasa Mombasa X2 point, and that is already set up down here on the plan page. Now, immediate return, we are far below the max landing weight, so we can come back with a standard traffic pattern, or if we absolutely have to, we can also just make a quick pattern. Left way round keeps us over the water, 2,000 feet, and that should be good. Now, I just noticed on the temperature that, of course, it didn't give us the real weather just yet, so let's just turn that on. And look at that, all of a sudden our elevation reads correctly as well, and the temperature 28. Very good, so I don't have any specials in terms of non-standards. There's one down here, that's the Nerak. The FMS tells me we can't reach that in 3,000 feet. I can absolutely tell you this thing is lying to us. Of course we will be able to make 3,000 feet by there. I mean, that's like 12 miles out, 13 miles. So, yeah, no problem at all. So, yeah, we're gonna disregard that one down here, and that's it. You have any questions on our briefing? No? That's wonderful. Then let's do the cockpit preparation checklist, please. So, gear pins and covers are removed. And of course my little app just crashed. Let's try that again. So gear pins and covers removed. Fuel quantity 14,960 kilograms balanced. Seatbelts on, ADRs, nav, and barrel ref, QNH 1011. Cockpit preparation checklist complete. A little bit strange looking at our position monitor page down here. We've just aligned the IRSs. There's absolutely no reason why two of them have drifted to 0.3 miles already. That would be mildly concerning. Unless your colleagues pressed the Align IRS button while... So, the one that shows up here before it's completed, because then it aligns on the airport reference point and not on the GPS position. But, yeah. We'll keep it at that. So, by now the load sheet should have arrived, so let's go down here, payload page. Zero fuel weight is 134.6 and the CG 25.8. So 134.6 is correct, slash 25.8, and that's a takeoff weight of 149.1, and we calculated 150 as far as I remember. We can just do it correctly, 149.1, calculate, And yeah, surprise, gives us the same data. Send to FMS, just to be on the safe side here. Trim 4.3 units. And yeah, that's exactly what we have. Very nice. So, it's just detuned my frequency again. Looks like the Sim Update 2 beta has broken something here again. Let's tune 1228 one more time. And then we can prepare our position for pushback and departure. As a matter of fact, GSX has some issues here at Mombasa, so we are going to use the built-in pushback system today. Let's close all those doors, remove the jetway, and come on, you close yourself. Here we go. Alright, all the doors are closed. Then, beacon on, transponder on, before start checklist. Gear pin, parking brake. Set, takeoff speeds and thrust. V1 146, VR 148, V2 151, flex 60. And the windows are closed, beacon on, before start checklist complete. Ground from flight deck. Go ahead. So, please confirm all doors and hatches closed, ground equipment removed, and the bypass pin is installed. That's all confirmed, Captain, and we're ready for push. Thank you very much, runway 21, and you're clear to push, parking brake released. Thank you, push and back, runway 21, stand by for engine start. Roger. So, here we go, they're connecting the tuck. The default system is a little bit lame there, unfortunately, but hey, so be it. So, as a matter of fun fact, look at that, Delta Alpha India Kilo Alpha in her old shape for Lufthansa, and now Delta Alpha India Kilo Alpha in her new colors for Discover. I like it. So, where are you pushing us? Make this straight pushback, please. That's probably better. Alright, so we are ready to start the engines. Gotta have a little look outside as well to make sure that we get more or less on that taxiway center line here. That's the annoying thing when you have to do the pushback and everything yourself. Alright, but for now, let's go ahead and start our engines. Sequence will be 1 then 2, and we're starting number 1 now. I think that might actually end up rather well. So the engine start sequence has seen some work with the update. So we see N3 increasing first, then we should eventually get N2, probably a little bit earlier than we actually get it here. Yeah, look at that. N2 has taken maybe a little bit too long. N1 is coming, fuel flow is coming, the EGT gets a little bit of delay, that is normal. And here we go, EGT is rising. Okay, and stop the pushback, please. So, not a perfect push, but could have been worse. So, parking brake set, please remove all the ground equipment and advise when clear, and we have a good start on engine number 1, starting engine number 2. Clear 2. Okay, waiting for the avail light to show. Here we are, and engine 2 start. So, while number 2 is running up, let's have another look at our sequence of events. So, N3 is rotating first, that's the inner spool, that's the one to which the starter is connected. Then N2 will eventually come up, and it might not start at 0, but a little bit higher. N1 is gonna start at 5%. That's because below 5, the FADEC is not able to measure anything accurate enough that you would get a readout. For this reason, 5% N1 is the minimum, so that's normal. EGT comes after a little bit of delay, only the fuel flow is a little bit high during the engine start. That's more or less the final fuel flow, around 700 kilos an hour. So there's a little room for improvement over there. But apart from that, the engine start is looking quite okay. For a default aircraft, very okay. Alright, and then we have 2 good engine starts. Clear to disconnect, show me the pin please, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye. So the trim should be 26.4 and is roughly 26.4, and that's looking perfect. Alright, the door is closed. Should probably have done that a little bit earlier. Clear signal received, after start checklist. Anti-ice is off, ecom status checked, pitch trim 26.4%, rudder trim neutral, after start checklist complete. So we're clear on the right side, and we're clear on the left side. Lights on, brakes off, let's go. So at this weight the A330 will easily accelerate up to 30 knots in idle. This one starts rolling, that's okay. Brake check, pressure 0. Note that it will do this, even at this speed right now, all the way up to the maximum takeoff weight. So it really has a very, very high idle thrust. Okay, we're clear on the left side. Good eye out if there are any animals around. There may very well be. Okay, so at the end to the right, and then all the way to the full-length runway 21. We'll delay the flight control check until we're on the main taxiway here. Clear left side and clear right side. So, entering the turn at a nice speed below 10 knots, so that we don't exceed 10 by the time we reach the end of that turn. And I have to say, this feels a little bit nostalgic over here. The scenery reminds me of a lot of FSX sceneries back in the day. As payware for Microsoft Flight Simulator, that's perhaps not exactly up to standard, but I like Mombasa, so hey. Alright, flight control check. Full up. Full down. Neutral. Full left, full right, neutral, and the rudder, full left, full right, neutral. Alright, so I have no changes to the takeoff briefing. Very good. The cabin is ready. Then we can do the taxi checklist, please. Flight controls, checked. Flap setting, conv 2, radar and predictive wind shear, on and auto. Engine start selector, norm, ECAM memo, takeoff, no blue. Taxi checklist complete. So, as you can see, the plane really picks up speed easily on idle thrust. And it will eventually exceed 30 knots. So on a flight like this, we normally don't have too many passengers on board. Right now we have about 103 tons of cargo that we are delivering to Kilimanjaro. When the aircraft flies to Mombasa, it's usually completely full, and then like half or 2/3 of the passengers disembark in Mombasa, and then you have the rest flying on to Kilimanjaro. That would be a pretty normal loadout for a flight like this, and that's exactly what we're doing today. So, reaching 30 knots, we haven't touched the brakes once except for the turn yet, so now we gotta slow down, but you really gotta pay attention to the brake temperature because of the short turnaround times that we have over here, and because the brakes don't have much time to cool down on our flight to Kilimanjaro either. So really gotta pay some attention here. So we're clear on the approach. I couldn't spot any animals. So let's line up on runway 21. So speed nice and slow. Cabin crew, prepare for departure. So down to 10 knots, and then we can do the lineup using some proper oversteering. Okay, lineup checklist. Takeoff runway, 21 full length, TCAS, TARA, packs 1 and 2, off, lineup checklist complete. So, the one thing I want you to take a look at as we set our takeoff thrust is how quickly the EPR increases. So, on the A330, once it's stabilized at 1.05 EPR, when you do set your takeoff thrust, it initially runs pretty quickly, but then the last, well, from about 1.25 onwards, it will take really long to set the takeoff thrust. And we'll see that in action now. So are you ready? Then take off. So now I'm moving the levers forward. Man flag 60, SRS, auto thrust blue. Now look closely at how long the EPR takes to get up there. And that was probably even a little bit too fast. The real one is even slower than that. But anyway, thrust set. (100 knots), checked. Rotate. Positive climb. Gear up. Nav. Checked. The nose is probably coming up a little bit too quickly for my taste. You need about 2/3 backstick in the real world for the nose to lift off, and in the sim it comes up almost immediately. Thrust declimb 2, climb auto thrust. And then we should be in the right turn to Nerak already. I'll just initiate that myself, and flaps 1. Speed checked, flaps 1, and flaps 0. Speed checked, flaps 0. So, give me direct to Nerak, please. Okay. So, let's continue the climb to flight level 210. Actually, we can go all the way to level 240 even. So, let's try that direct again. Here we go, that's better. So, set standard. Standard thrust check, passing flight level 27 now. Checked. Okay, so packs are on, everything is set, wonderful. That's how I like it. So, quick check at the chart. I had the feeling that our transition altitude was a little bit too low. I think it's, yeah, look at that. So the actual transition altitude is 5,000 in Mombasa, and for some reason the aircraft already started flashing the altimeter setting at about 2,000 feet. That was most definitely not correct. That was most definitely not correct. Okay, so we're in the air, we're under radar contact, and normally they're very good with directs here. So let's go direct to Seoul. And yeah, if you are a local or someone who speaks the local language, tell me if there's any meaning to Seoul other than the one that I'm thinking of when I hear that waypoint name. I mean, I always thought that the Belgians were creative naming their nav 8s. Dick, Cock, Lul, you name it. But this asshole over here really comes close. I mean, we do have an ass kick in Germany, so that's probably... you guess it. I do like the waypoint Armut as well, literally means poverty in German. And of course it's located at some, close to some airport where you typically see lots of private jets and the rich guys. I like it. Alright, so we're up in the air, and we no longer need our chrono over here since we're in climb thrust. Then, let's see. Top of descent in around 100 nautical miles, that's okay. Well then, I'm going to fly the acceleration here at level 100 manually, and then we'll put the autopilot on. In the real world, I'll tell you honestly, it's a pretty early flight. I mean, it's 4:40 UTC right now. That would be 5:40 that my body clock is used to. So we'd probably have gotten up at around, I don't know, 2 AM or so for this flight. So if I'm feeling awake and if my colleague is fully awake as well, then I'd probably consider doing the entire flight manually. Just because you don't get to do that a lot. And normally when you climb above level 250, you gotta put the autopilot on anyway. So if you have the chance to do a flight like this, then yeah, practicing your hand flying skills definitely isn't wrong. For flight simming purposes though, let's engage the autopilot so that we have a bit of time available to set the aircraft up for the arrival into Kilimanjaro. By the way, did you notice that the speed bug just kept jumping up and down a little bit? Yeah, we just saw it again. That's strange. Certainly the real one wouldn't do that. Now, rate of climb is pretty good, 2,500 feet a minute. But then again, we're only at about 148 tons, so no surprise that the aircraft is climbing that quickly. What's interesting though is that one down here. I saw minus 16, even though we've got a TUT at plus 21. That is not correct. That is absolutely not correct. In fact, let's see, we're about in 13,000, so the ICAO standard temperature should be minus 9, I believe. So, yeah, we should have ISA plus 30 or something the likes. That's a little strange. And I think that used to work earlier. I don't know, perhaps they broke it. Perhaps they broke it with the update. So, we've passed 10,000, lights off, signs off, even though it's just a short flight. Let's give them the chance to go to the toilet, and for the cabin crew just to serve one round of water, maybe. Alright, and apart from that, clear and copy, please. So, HTKJ, what's that, 09? It's going to be our arrival runway, 127 miles out, so that's going really quickly. In the real world, the optimum level would be adjusted for trip length. So, with only 156 miles remaining along our route, you would get an optimum level of something like 240 or so, close to what the flight plan says normally. So, that optimum should be adjusted. In any case, 240 it is, and that's going to give us about 60 miles or so in cruise flights, which I'm fairly happy with. So now the big question is when Mount Kilimanjaro is going to come into view. Let's go ahead and just have a look at the local charts already, so we can remove all the Mombasa charts from the clipboard here. And then we are looking at HTKJ, Kilimanjaro. Charts, and for this one we need the arrivals for runway 09, then we need the ILS Zulu approach for runway 09, and we need the airport chart. And do we have some area chart? No. Now what did I expect in Africa? In any case, looking at the star chart, we can already see what the matter is. in this area. So, highest MSA, flight level 220, and that's because we're flying towards the tallest mountain in Africa. So Mount Kilimanjaro right over here, 19,341 feet. So that's really one of those. Places where you really want to know where you are. You can also see how close it is to the border to Kenya, with the Nairobi FIR up here and the Dar es Salaam FIR down here. Luckily we are coming in from the south, Oknas, but even over here we can see mountains up to 6,500 feet, and then over here you've got another one going to 15,000 feet, over here 6,000, 5,000, 7,000, so pretty high terrain all over the area. But I can tell you that much, it looks absolutely impressive when you are flying to Kilimanjaro and eventually the mountain starts coming into view. I'm actually wondering if... oh yeah, there it is. That is our mountain already. At least I'm fairly sure it is. I told you it's a big one. And this time I mean it. Not even my ex can say anything against that one. Okay, so let's just start to prepare ourselves already. We are coming in from Oknas down here. So let's bring up the plan. 40-mile range should be sufficient. So from Oknas we proceed to Kilo Juliet 806 above 9,000 feet. Then we continue on towards Ixeba, also above 9,000, maximum 230 knots. And then we join the ILS Zulu approach, runway 09. And that one's from Ixeba towards waypoint 801 above 6,000, maximum 230. Then we continue to waypoint, actually no waypoint, but to 6.5 DME. And that's what we got here, Kilo 65. And that's in 5,000, 3-degree glide. And we have that right down here. And in case of missed approach, we continue straight ahead via Kilo Victor to 6,000 feet, and then a right-hand turn towards Xatro, 9,000 feet, and maximum to 30 knots. And that's exactly what we've got over here, and visible over here as well. Alright, wonderful. So our route is now checked. For the radio aids, we basically don't need any because, well, it's all ANAF anyway. So Kilimanjaro 09 is in here. Now let's go for the weather conditions. And we have almost 1,000 to go, so... speed, vertical speed. 1,000 to go. So, looks like it's not getting us any weather. Then let's see what we had in the flight plan, then we'll just use that. Alright, so Kilimanjaro 160 at 5, 30 degrees, 1015. So 1015, 30 degrees, and 160 at 5. Here we go. Okay, so that's all we've got for this. Minimum is 3,250. All crew start. And that's 3,250, config 3 for sure. All crews. So, quick fuel check. Top of climb, 8 minutes. And we took 12. 13 actually. That's probably because SimReef assumes that you're not using any climb thrust derate. 6.6 is the minimum fuel. We took 5,000 tankering, so that's 11.6 estimated. 12.3 on board, so we saved 600 kilos. That's quite alright. Alright, cool. So that much for these entries. Now, let's see about our go-around. MSA is 6.5, so let's actually use 6.5 for the engine out acceleration. Thrust reduction and standard acceleration, well, yeah, are okay at 3930. And we have an hour and 14 minutes extra. Copy the active into the secondary, and that's all we need. So if we take a look at the airport chart, landing runway 09, that's over here. We'll probably be using that turn bay over here to then vacate via Victor and then most likely via Sierra onto one of those parking stands over here on the main apron. We'll see about that when we get there. I'm gonna leave the auto brake off in order to keep the brake temperatures down, since the airport is definitely hot and also rather high. So brake cooling may be a bit of a thing. Then again, we are incredibly light, so I'm not too worried about it. But in any case, we'll need to backtrack anyway, so keeping the auto brake off is absolutely fine. Cool, so then we are ready with all that part of the setup. There's Mount Kilimanjaro over here. I told you, it's a rather large one. Let's see if our terrain display is implemented again. But it doesn't look like it, just remains blank. Alright. Interesting as well, the weather radar is still not fixed. I mean, look at these returns and then look down here. Tilt 6 degrees up. So 6 degrees up is somewhere over here. You see any weather there? No? Then you know why I keep saying that the radar is useless. If we turn this down to something like -1 or so, then a picture like this would be believable. But yeah, you can see it's still the same old Asobo radar that doesn't work. That's useless, basically. Alright, so, time to start our briefing, please. So we are following the Ognes arrival for an ILS Zulu approach runway 09, MSA 6.5 in the approach area, minimum 3,250, and in case of go-around straight at 6,000, right turn to that waypoint, climbing at 9,000, and extra fuel for an hour and 15 minutes. Alright, thank you for that one. Flight director guided ILS approach runway 09, flaps 3 landing, and we will be using reversers to the maximum so that we can keep the brakes as cool as possible for the short turnaround that we've got upcoming. I believe it's an hour, maybe 90 minutes. In any case, I would look that up in the real world now just to know what kind of brake cooling requirements we actually have. So we got to make a 180 in the turn pad and then vacate the runway into the opposite direction. Our stand is going to be number 5 most likely, perhaps number 6. We'll see about that. And we've got no specials and nothing non-standard. Threats for the arrival, most certainly that little mountain that we can see over there. But that shall not be too much of a problem because we can actually see everything. So down here, well, if we do go IMC, keep it south of the airport. That's the important thing. Because anything that can cause scratches into the aircraft is located up here in the north. The south is rather flat, with only 5,500, 4,500, 4,500, well, and then 6,100 for the grid, but we are not going to fly that far to the south anyway. Alright, and that's it. So we're overflying an asshole. Let's see the fuel. So Asol, 10 minutes versus 17. Not sure how Simbrief miscalculated that so far. So Asol, 11 minutes. I have no idea how he should possibly have made that. Actually, I tell you what, I'm on the wrong flight plan up here. That's looking better. So Ognes, 19 minutes. That looks quite a lot more believable. And then 5.8 is the minimum plus the 5,000 we tankered, so we're looking at 10.8 tons of fuel once we're actually over at Ognes. So that's quite alright. We're here at about 18 minutes, so pretty much spot on. Fuel 800 kilos on top. Happy with that. Absolutely happy with that. So let's do a quick PA and then we can start our descent thereafter. Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, this is your captain speaking. On the right hand side you can already see Mount Kilimanjaro, and we will start our descent towards the airport in the next few moments. The weather at the moment, temperatures of 30 degrees, few clouds, couple of rain showers in the area, which are going to move through within the next couple of hours. We hope that you have enjoyed your Discover Airlines flight, and we look forward to welcome you again on board of a future service. Until then, we'd like to say goodbye to you now. Hope that you have enjoyed the flight as much as we did, and we look forward to welcome you again on board of a future service. Thank you very much for your attention, and we now wish you a lovely best time of the year. Liebe Fluggäste aus dem Cockpit, Ihr Kapitän, wir beginnen in Kürze unseren Sinkflug in Richtung des Mount Kilimanjaro, den Sie rechts von unserem Flugzeug auch schon sehen können. Das Wetter derzeit durchwachsen, einige Regenschauer in der Gegend bei einer Temperatur von 30 Grad. Wir bedanken uns an der Stelle herzlich, dass Sie heute unsere Gäste waren, wünschen Ihnen einen schönen Aufenthalt, gegebenenfalls eine gute und sichere Weiterreise und freuen uns, Sie bald wieder an Bord eines unserer Flugzeuge willkommen zu heißen. Vielen Dank und wir wünschen Ihnen jetzt eine unvergessliche, schönste Zeit des Jahres. Alright, and I'm back on. Let's start that descent. Down to level 150 at first. Descent alt, flight level 150 blue. And there's the mountain. So, seatbelts 15 minutes before landing. Let's see, ETA is now at 14, so yeah, basically now. So strange when you suddenly have to apply short-haul procedures instead of the normal long-haul procedure that you're used to. But yeah, any and all of those German holiday A330 operators do have short-haul flights. So I guess regardless which of those you work for, the struggle is real. The same also applies to Lufthansa, by the way. They also do short-haul on the 330s, even though not as short as we are doing over here. Now the flight from Mombasa to Zanzibar is even quicker, and funnily enough, there is one day in the week where both Condor and Discover operate that flight at the same off-block time, I believe within 5 minutes scheduled from one another. So basically, you've got two heavy aircraft chasing each other on a 100-mile flight. So cool to operate those. And all of that, of course, with African air traffic control, and you guys know by now what that means. So I'm not going to go into any further details on that. So, look at this. That's a mountain over there. So over here we have cumulus. Over here we've got towering cumulus. And over there, we've got Cumulus granitus. Two of those I'll fly through. The third one, wrong airline. That's an amazing sight. I mean, look at this. Just look at this. It's a little unfortunate that it is so cloudy today, but yeah, what can you do, huh? I guess we'll gotta get through that. So that's a couple of holes in the clouds. I find that African landscape really fascinating to look at. It's so completely different from, you know, Europe, North America. There's just nothing like it in the world. I just find that really fascinating. Down here as well. I thoroughly enjoy those African flights. Really have to say that. Unfortunately, not too many viewers do. For that reason, I can't do them too often on the channel here. But if you guys like my choice of airports for this one, be sure to put that in the comments. So, one more look at the mountain, and then we'll probably be in IMC in the next couple of minutes. Well, and here we are, seated again. So now, let's descend via the arrival, and we can eventually go down to 5,000, and from there on we will start the approach. Set QNH. QNH 1015 cross-check, passing 16,100 now. Checked. So, looks like the airport is at least clear of any of that precipitation here. Because those showers can just be incredibly strong in this region of the world. You have the runway inside, a shower moves in at like a mile out, no way you're gonna see that runway anymore. That's just how strong those can become. Well, losing sight of the mountain, that's fine. And then we're almost in 10,000 above the ground already. So, lights on, signs on, constraints, LS, and GPS primary, high accuracy, mode selector, norm, and that's it. Alright, so one more try to see if we can grab some weather over here, but no. Perhaps if we select it down here. Nope, doesn't look like it. Alright, so be it. So, 5:25 is the scheduled arrival time, 5:04 right now, so we'll be there about on time. On stand, on time. That's all you can ask for, right? So all the showers are to the left, there's nothing over to the right. And let's reduce that range a little bit. Alright, and then approach checklist please. Barrel reference, QNH 1015, seatbelts on, minimum, barrel 3250, auto brake off, engine start selector, norm, approach checklist complete. On one occasion I flew to Kilimanjaro and we had to go into a holding because 6 long-haul aircraft arrived at the same time. Some coming directly there, like us, and others coming from other airports. Was quite incredible. We went into a holding for like half an hour or so. And you know, that's the last thing you're expecting at an airport like this. But apparently they have some really great separation here. Because, well, they just don't have very accurate air traffic control. So we are slowing down pretty early. Those 230 knots are only required in like 8.5 miles. Then again, of course, it's rather warm outside, 21 degrees. Where's my eyesight deviation? Huh. Well, it's rather warm outside, so the true airspeed is still relatively high, even once we're down at 230 knots. In general, on this base leg over here, speed control will be paramount. And I'm wondering why we're not receiving any ILS here. Let's have a look at that chart, see if it might have tuned an incorrect frequency. Yeah, look at that, 110.9. And it's tuned 108.1. That's definitely not correct. Haven't seen it do that in a time. Oh, come on. Kilo Kilo, does it take that? Yeah. Alright, course 088 is correct, 110.9 is also correct. And that ILS is identified. Perfect. Thrust descent. Speed all constraint start, descent blue. So, not exactly optimal VNAV calculations here. And look at that. 5000 blue, but we are still a mile prior to Xaber. It's violating the altitude constraint. No, 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 my friend. 6000 magenta. Thrust idle. That is, well, passing Xaber now, 700 feet too low. You can improve that in your builds. But I'm sure they will, if Microsoft asks them to do that. Which they don't always do, but hopefully they will. So, a little bit above the profile, let's help it a bit. Half speed brake. So as you can see now, we are above the glide, we are only 13 miles from the final, and we still have to reduce our airspeed, so we definitely have to help the airplane a little bit now. 500 above the profile is not too bad, but let's not take chances here. The A330 is a very, very slippery aircraft, so we got to be careful here. The real one is even more slippery than the simulated one. You can kind of compare it to the Phoenix A319. Speed all constraint stop. Alright, let's activate the approach phase. That way we can already start slowing down. Cat 3 dual, autopilot 1 and 2, lock star, glide slope blue. $1,000 to go. And again, the VNAV profile is much too low here. We're just passing the kilojoule at 801 point with a 6,000 restriction. Look at that.
2,500.
Checked. So field elevation is roughly 3,000. Can always get that from the cruise page down here. Landing elevation 2,990. So basically at 5,500 we are going to get the gear down. For now, flaps 1. Speed checked, flaps 1. Right, might have been a little bit too late here. Let's get some more speed brake out. Glide slope, localizer. Go around altitude 9,000 set. Well, that should be white, not blue. Okay, full speed brake, gear down. You can't deploy flaps 2 yet, because that flap speed is incorrect. That will be 196, but that's the bulk of the real airplane. Okay, flaps 2. And you'll see that in action right now. So look at this. Now the flaps are still extending, and as soon as they reach config 2 down here, that's when you'll see, here you go, the speed, or the red overspeed marker just jumping down. That's how the A330 is. Interesting airplane, isn't it? So, flaps 3. Speed check, flaps 3. Cabin ready. Just using the speed brake to help slowing it down right now. As mentioned, pretty slippery aircraft. But we have another 500 feet until we have to be stabilized, so here we go. That's looking good. Landing checklist, econ memo, landing no blue. Landing checklist complete. Alright. Cat 1. So we should need about 46% N1. But we are hot and high, so perhaps a little bit more, like 50% right now. That seems okay to me. Well, and there's the Kilimanjaro over there. Again, watch out for animals, especially birds in this area.
500.
Checked. Land. Checked.
300. Minimum.
Continue.
200.
Controlling those engines in the approach regime is rather difficult in the sim. There's just so little range between the approach thrust and idle.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Spoilers, reverse green, decel. So this is the exit I did not want to take. That's the one we'll vacate onto after the 180. We could have made it, especially with auto brake medium, but much better this way. And now we've just got to let it roll a little bit anyway. 70 knots. So there comes the turn bay. And manual brakes. Okay, so we'll do the 180 over here. Huge mountain over there. Huge mountain. That thing is like 15,000 feet above our current elevation. And as you can see, large aircraft, you do need all that distance to turn it. You better make good use of the turn bay. And this is exactly the reason, by the way, why first officers are not allowed to make a 180 on a runway. It's just too tight. Especially if you accidentally stop it while you do the 180. Alright, but here we are. So we'll keep the flaps out at 1, since the temperature is 30 degrees. Actually, it's only 23. Okay, that's interesting. In that case, we'll retract the flaps completely. We'll keep the lights for the time being, and APU coming on. So we have 1 minute since high thrust operation. Shutdown engine number 2. And as the new procedure, we no longer need to wait for the APU to start. We can now shut engine number 2 down just a minute after high thrust operation, even without the APU operating. So vacating, strobes, lights, all off. And then a quick check into the ground chart again. So we're over here on Victor now. We'll continue via Yankee, Sierra, and then stamp number 7. Let's see if we have GSX available. What are you doing? Well, gate 7, here it is. No follow me needed. I guess I don't want to know what this is all about. And can we get rid of this up here somehow? Maybe? Huh. No further comment on that. So GSX is there, and that equipment is right on our parking position. Oh, lovely. I may have been a little bit naive thinking GSX would work with the Sim Update 2 beta. Obviously it doesn't, and now we're stuck with this strange thing over here, which we can't even get rid of. So, off to the right, lights off, and then stand number 7, that's over here. So the marshal is in place. I kinda doubt that the stairs are far away. Or far away enough that we don't crash our wings into them, but let's just assume GSX is not going bonkers right now. Relax down here, we are still turning. And stop. Cabin crew, all doors in park. Okay. And here we are. So, GSX, request deboarding please. Engine is running down. Lights off, signs off, and pumps off. So, parking checklist, park and brake our trucks, brake set, engines off, and fuel pumps off. Parking checklist complete. Well, my friends, and with this, we have made it. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well. So what's my first impression of the Sim Update 2 beta? To be honest, I am a little bit worried about frame rate, because as you can see, we are at airports here which have absolutely nothing around them. Mombasa was so simplistic, and still we had quite some stuttering over there. And here in Kilimanjaro it seems pretty similar, to be honest. A little bit better than in Mombasa though. So hopefully the frame rate is going to improve again. Apart from that, the sim worked pretty well and I couldn't notice any major problems on this one. So, now it's up to you. Have you tried Sim Update 2 already? Be sure to let me know what you think about it and put that into the comments underneath the video. For now, I would like to thank you very much for watching. Hope that you've enjoyed the flight as much as I did. Be sure to leave your feedback as I'm really looking forward to it. Like, comment and subscribe, and if you really love what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.